One of the things that we've been really keen to do is to move the AI story forwards. AI isn't new, as we've been at great pains to express over the last few days. And yes, we are in a wave of AI at the moment. So how, as a conference, how, as an industry, do we take the conversation forward? How, as a journalist, do we take the AI conversation forward? And certainly in 2025, one of those ways is physicalization of AI. It's all too easy to think of AI as being something, a chatbot, a digital existence on a phone, on a screen. But actually what happens when AI moves from being digital to physical, to being embodied AI? And as we talk a lot in Europe about trying to kickstart Europe's innovation efforts, industrial AI, bringing the physical and the digital together, is seen as one of the keys to unlock the next wave, certainly for Europe, maybe for humanity as well. And our next conversations on stage, our next presentation is very, very much with that in mind. The rise of physical AI, or how generative AI transforms our real world, is our next session, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage someone who I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking with over the last year or so about exactly this topic. He is head of AI and Interactive Systems Division at the French Atomic Agency, the CEA. Please show your appreciation for Gregorio Amayugo.
David. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's great to be here. We are living in interesting times, and I, for one, never thought that I would live in an age where humanoid robots are doing push-ups and sweating, at a time where the time between breakthroughs is getting shorter than an Amazon bathroom break. But these are the times that we are living. Robotics and AI are doing amazing stuff. But we are also living in the time of fake news, in the time of social networks, in the time of make-believe. So as AI and robotics are converging, what can they really do? And is it enough for the applications that we want them to do? I, for one, would never ride in a robot taxi that drove like me. I would not buy a domestic robot that ironed like me. I would never replace my cat with a robot. But my mother-in-law, that's a different matter. So today I would like you to join me in a journey to the mystical land of AI and robotics, because there is a lot of myth. What they can do, what they cannot do, the obstacles and the opportunities. And I would like us to try and answer the most important question of all for me. Will they help us make the world a better place? And before we do that, let's just take a breath, take a step back, and see what we are doing today. For the past few decades, we've been extending a blanket over our planet. It's a digital blanket. And now this blanket extends today outside our planet already. It relies on infrastructure, on communications networks, on computing. But the part of the infrastructure that interests me today is the gateways, because there are gateways between the physical world and the digital world. And now these gateways, as the internet began and we started weaving this digital blanket together, they were fixed in space. They were our personal computers. We could use information, but we had to be in one place. Then, just 20 years ago, a drop in the ocean in the life of my mother-in-law, these access points, these gateways became mobile. And all of a sudden, we were able to use the information from the digital world in anywhere we wanted, increasingly, and act ourselves using our terminals. So that was already a few years ago. Today, we live in a world where we have more connected objects than people. Everything from cars to You heard it from me, ladies and gentlemen, deodorant sticks. Deodorant sticks for those smelly robotic armpits. These things exist already. So we are connecting everything, we're generating data, and we are feeding this digital blanket. Now, what this digital blanket is enabling us to do is to lead the AI revolution. So we have become little minion Oompa Loompas, and the representation on the screen is a copyright-free generative AI version of Minion Oompa Loompas that not only generate data in the digital world, but right now we generate it in the real world. We use it to create AI models that we can then take back into the physical world to help us, also on the web. And interestingly enough, for the past 8 years or so, at the beginning it was just a trickle, with generative AI, we are feeding additional data from these models into the digital blanket. As you all know, from November 2022 onwards, the tap is broken and we cannot close it. So now we're flooding our digital blanket with generated data. But that is another problem. What we did find out with generative AI, though, is that from its humble beginnings about 10 years ago, if we were able to gather enough data from the web and make models that were large enough, we could mimic human speech, we could mimic human reasoning. That is not to say that we could reason. And we could make all that information much more readily available to everyone. And that's where the scare began. They said, oh gosh, if they can behave like humans, these agents are going to replace us. And I think we were all affected by that, even myself. Said, well, we will not have journalists anymore because we can generate data. Now, I don't think we're out of the danger zone. But if the last 2 years have taught us anything, is that what it's actually doing is extending our capabilities. So right now, we have gone from doing things by ourselves to being the mini CEOs of an army of AI agents that is extending our capacity. And as artificial intelligence moves from the web domain into the real world, the big question is, what's going to come out of the digital blanket? And it turns out that robots can very well come out of the digital blanket now. Robots were already part of these gateways. So your friendly neighborhood Roomba is already connected to the digital blanket. It's got a digital twin of your house, and it's using it. But the really interesting thing with generative AI is that it has revived the age-old dream of the general-purpose robot, the golem that can do everything, someone who looks exactly like us, but we can boss around so we can be lazy, and it will work in our stead. Why is this dream being revived now? Well, it turns out that the robots that are everywhere in factories are actually very simple things. In robotics, we talk about degrees of freedom. So how many different axes the robot can move around. And typical robots have got 6. You want to make a humanoid robot? You need much, much, much more than that. As we're finding out today, if you even want to mimic a human hand, it's already 4 times harder than our industrial robots. Want to make a real humanoid that moves like us? Well, there you go, more than 10 times harder. So people, such as my own lab, have been making humanoid architecture for a long time, and they were really difficult to make. It's really difficult to control. I said, haha, now that we've got artificial intelligence, we can just feed it lots of data. We won't worry about that complexity. It's going to be somewhere in there. And the same way that we did with large language models, we could make them generate movement. Oh, what could that do? What could that do if we were able to make these robots that can do different tasks at our command, where we could talk to them in natural language and they would execute complex tasks? Well, there you go. The market predictions are saying it. Well, if we can do that, The robotics market could be just multiplied by 10. I'm just talking about the professional service robotics market. And we're not talking about the conventional robots that are there already. We're talking about everything around it. It's the tasks that are done by humans today. And if we're able to do that, yes, because that's a big if, the market is going to explode. And not only that, much in the same way as slaves in ancient Rome, the difference between an industrial robot and a household robot is going to be blurred. So try and make one solution for one of these domains, and you'll have one solution for both. And Bob's your uncle. The market's multiplied by 2. So now we're talking about 20 times growth in the market. And that explains everything that's going on today, all this investment into startups that are moving towards these general-purpose robots. Now, I'm going to oversimplify things a little bit, but there is a bet behind that. So in 2017, when the transformer architecture started, the first models that were made used a little bit of data. So we had small models in the range of 100 million parameters. It did hello world. It generated text, most of it rubbish. And the bet that was made at the time by OpenAI, but today we see plenty and plenty of actors that are still working hard at it, is if you manage to have enough data and a large enough model, it's going to be able to do tasks better and better and better, and more of them. So we went to the, it's actually not good enough at all, to the, it can do lots of stuff, and I can use it in a professional context if my boss doesn't catch me. So there it worked. Today, in robotics, we are in 2017. 2018, if you want, regarding generative AI, which means that we are able to use visual language models, we're able to use large action models, and make robots move in rather disappointing ways. So it's good for LinkedIn, good for YouTube. Many of the demos work, but when the mic comes off and they said, when can I have this in my factory? I say, oh, wait. We'll deploy a pilot and we'll see how it goes. There are hurdles. And there is still a big uncertainty where the green zone would be for Gen AI and robotics. The thing is, with large language models, we had data on the web. It was already in the digital blanket, and it was not so difficult to access. Not going to talk about copyright. In the real world, it's much more expensive to gather data. And so some actors, many actors actually, are saying today that you will never be able to get all of that data from the real world. It would be too expensive. So some of it, a lot of it, most of it, all of it is going to have to be simulated. So we'll train our models in simulation. Guess what? That sells a lot of GPUs. So what are these hurdles then that have to be overcome? Well, if you want to make general purpose robots that are powered by AI, the general purpose bit of the robot itself is a problem. Today's robots have got limited payload capacity. They are not very reliable. And by this, I mean they have lots of moving parts and things that can go wrong. They are not accurate, which means you ask him to go here, and it's going to go there. It's not a problem unless it's tipping over a bottle of bleach on your thighs. And they are not repeatable. So what this means is, because their architecture is not rigid, you say, touch this button, it works. Touch it again, it's going to miss. And that's actually a huge problem if you want to take legal responsibility for what your robot is doing. And that's just the physical side of things. Because the same problems that plague generative artificial intelligence in the digital blanket become much worse when we enter the real world. Reasoning capability. I said before, we're mimicking it. We're not really reasoning. Controlling robots with lots of degrees of freedom and doing that reliably with an AI model is not easy at all. And then we've got the little problem of the ODD and the OOD. The ODD is the operational design domain, where you want your robot to work. And you gather the data for your models within this domain. So if you get an unexpected bit of data, what we call out of distribution, you have zero guarantees that your robot is going to behave correctly. So the robot encounters my mother-in-law. She was not in the data set. I don't know how it's going to behave with her. Give you an example. Hopefully not well. And then, if we want to train our models with simulated data, what's the quality of that data? How representative is it of the real world? And it turns out that if you want your simulation to be representative, that requires a lot of computing power and time. So we're going to be burning a lot more energy to do that. So at the end of the day, the quality of what we call the world model of the robot, so this bit of digital blanket that it's going to carry around to reason, is critical. And then the killer question is, what's the cost of making a mistake? If you write a bad poem with ChatGPT, there's no cost. But with a robot in the real world, you could kill someone. So the economic and the human cost is very important. So that's why I am willing to make a prediction. I think this is a really stupid thing to do these days. That 2025 will be, in the Chinese calendar, the year of the robot that is general purpose but can do only one thing. And when I say one thing, is doing one thing reliably. That thing, we'll see in a second, is carrying boxes around. Now, this scale, I actually stole it from Hiroaki Kitano, so from Sony. But he kindly let me use it here today. Shows where the potential of AI-powered robotics lies. So you want to use AI. The advantage is better when you've got open-ended environments. Why? Because AI allows robots to be more adaptable to the real world. What does open-ended mean? The park, the field, the roads, where you might expect to encounter anything. So that's where you'd have the most potential relative to what exists today. On the other end of the scale, if you've got an environment that's already very well structured, the gain of AI is not going to be worth it. But that's only one side of the scale. Because then the question is, what is the tolerance to failure of the task that you want the robot to do? And as it turns out, if you want to use the robots for entertainment, and I'm not going to go any deeper into what entertainment means, that's failure tolerant. So if it goes wrong, by and large, you can get away with it. Stay in the open-ended domain, but go into the domain of connected autonomous vehicles. It's still open-ended, but any mistake will kill someone. So the potential is there. But now you see why it's been so hard, and we're still working hard at it, trying to make these autonomous vehicles safe. And a lot of it, again, depends on the world models that these vehicles can have. If you go all the way to manufacturing, and now you might ask yourselves, why are there so many LinkedIn videos with robots in manufacturing? Because it is the best structured environment, and one of the environments where there's the least tolerance for failure. Well, as it turns out, we need to step a little bit back and say, within each of these environments, there are the tasks where we cannot tolerate failure, and there are plenty of other tasks, typically done by humans today, that are not very interesting or value-added, but where you can tolerate failures. Hence, carrying boxes around. What's interesting is the real killer applications are not so far away. It's not what you might think, and I'll talk about that in just 1 second. But deploying robots in these tasks helps us get a foot in the door. When I say a foot in the door, it means They're there in the real world. They are gathering data. And aha, we can start the AI extra large magic, get more and more data, help us build better models, and hopefully move further to the right, further down, and get these applications that are value added. It's not sure how long it's going to take us to get there. It's not sure yet. So what we're doing now is trying to find ways of leveraging the power of AI in robotics while introducing safety features that will allow us to do more and more stuff with them. So in terms of domains, it's interesting to look out for companies, for technologies that allow not general-purpose robots, but multi-purpose robots. Robots that can do many things, but they're not necessarily humanoids. And domains that are open, but where you can tolerate a bit more failure. It turns out that in infrastructure maintenance and in agriculture, for many applications, you can tolerate a bit more failure. And robots are going out into the world today already with AI and generating value in these applications. Another thing to watch for is architectures that are safe by design. More of that in a minute. Because if you make a mistake, the robot's not going to hurt you anyway. So that's important. Hybrid artificial intelligence. There are plenty of startups out there that are trying to tackle this problem today. That's one to watch for. And also systems that allow the human to stay in the loop. And finally, the hot topic today is dexterity. If we want to make robots that do lots of things like humans, we want to do robots that can handle things like humans. And that is an incredibly difficult problem. So right here, you see a hand from our laboratory that has got two brains. So it's got two separate electronics, two separate AI modeling approaches, one for the skin and one for the rest of the hand, and the two brains talk to each other. So it can interpret what the skin is feeling and help the hand grasp things better. You might think that the two-brain approach is new and strange, but I'll let you know that Stegosaurus, a few tens of millions of years ago, already had two brains. So it's actually an interesting approach, I believe. And there are spin-offs that are coming to market very soon with this type of approaches, leveraging AI to help robots grab better. Now, the question now for the long term, is this all leading us towards a positive future? Automation has helped us a lot. At the turn of the century, in France, 50% of the population was bending over like that. Today, it's 3% that works in the fields, and they're not bending over anymore. They're using machines. Is the future going to look like people bending over again, but robots? Jury's out. I don't think that it is. But certainly AI-powered robots, that's for sure. And now, one more thing I have to say, there you go, is that if we actually want to scale this up all the way, we're not ready for it yet anyway. You know about the limitations regarding electric technology already. If we actually wanted to deploy general-purpose robots everywhere, with the technology that's available today, we simply do not have the resources. And so AI-powered robots could help us look after the environment. But what good is it if the resources to build them are going to be destroying it behind our back? That's actually a huge problem. So the lithium problem from here to 2030, just for electric vehicles, is not solved. The batteries for humanoid robots are in the order of 10 to 100 times what we need for the classic appliances. We're not there yet. Finally, I would like to talk about another interesting concept that we covered at the beginning. Robots, we are making them autonomous, but we can also think of them as gateways into this digital world. So I've made up another word. It's RAG, not recall augmented generation, but robot as a gateway. There you go. So you can pronounce it RAG. And the interesting thing of using robots as gateways is that the same robotics technology that you can use to make robots walk around and do things, you can use it to make people interact with the digital world and interact with the physical world on the other end. And the possibilities for that are wonderful, enhanced by AI. Now, this is not a well-known fact, but in 2019, we were lucky enough to do a world first in our laboratories. So we made a tetraplegic patient walk again with brain implants, using exoskeleton arms and exoskeleton legs. And so he controlled the exoskeleton with his brain and learned to walk again. What is not well known, and that's the beautiful thing, is that he spent 3 weeks per month in his wheelchair, hooked up to a digital twin, to a simulation. And he learned to walk in a simulated way. And when we hooked him up in the last week of every month to the real robot, his neural pathways had been rewired. And he could walk again. He could control the real thing. So right now what we are seeing is robots and humans merging together at the same time that the digital world and the physical world are merging together as well. Now, I've always wanted to do this. Ta-da! So what we see here is actually the top part of the exoskeleton that I was talking about earlier. But this exoskeleton is being used as a gateway between doctors and patients. So this is a rehabilitation exoskeleton for people who have had a stroke. Normally, they have to do exercises, so the doctor has to work with them by hand. And using a robot that can be fitted around the patient and the doctor can define the exercises. The patient can control, as you see on the screen, a virtual version of himself. But the doctor can go through the virtual version and help a patient even if he's in a different city. He can help several patients at the same time. And so these are robots that are capable of autonomous operation. And let's show, for example, how we can define this. So now I'm the doctor, and I'm going to define what exercises, so it's the movements, the force I want my patient to make. Once I've defined my exercise, I leave the patient to it, and the patient would step in, and the robot will help him do the different exercises and adapt to him as he gets better and better, putting more or less strength. I think this is a beautiful way to deploy robotics. We are doing AI-powered robotics. We use the artificial intelligence to adapt to the person, and we're using the robot as a gateway between a doctor and a patient, a gateway between the physical and the virtual world, and vice versa. And as we deploy more and more AI-powered robotics, the interaction between humans and robots is going to be more and more important. So what I would like to give you as key takeaways today is that AI-powered robots can do a lot of cool stuff on social networks, but they're still unreliable today. They do show incredible potential, however. So far, we've managed to deploy them, and we will continue to deploy them in simple tasks. But that is the foot in the door to get into the real world, to begin gathering data, and to take this technology further. So you have to watch for this exponential paradigm as AI goes extra large again in the physical world. There are short-term opportunities in fault-tolerant applications, and that's what we're seeing today. But it's much more important to watch companies that are building safe-by-design architectures and components, hypervision technologies, and manipulation technologies, everything else that will make these robots get better and better over time. And finally, remember the idea that robots are also gateways between the physical world and the digital world. And that will make for a better future. That's it from my side. It was lovely to be here with you. Thank you very much.
So, join me in welcoming to the stage coach from the pitch doctor, Christoph Sollich. Christoph. There we go. You can make your own music.
Yes. As you already heard, I'm known as the pitch doctor. Maybe some of you have met me, but that's not why I'm here today. Today I'm here because I'm the CEO of a company called Pony, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But first I want to talk about movements and counter movements, because what you heard from Gregorio, I don't really agree with it, okay? So you know the movement, we all sit there, we date online, we just swipe. That's been the movement for a decade. Well, there's a new movement, apparently a counter movement, where people go to physical places. They call it bars, apparently, and they meet people there. I know it's insane, but you should maybe try it out. There's been the movement of posting your amazing life on Instagram. Now there's a counter movement. Maybe the really innovative people already know it. It's called Blanstagram, where you post the real things that you do that maybe aren't that exciting. And then there's been the movement of people wearing these vests, especially in the startup context, right? And now there's the counter movement where you wear just fleece sleeves. Apparently that's the new hot thing. So there's always a counter movement, and I strongly believe there will be a counter movement to the entire AI and robots thing. Because robots have been around for a while, right? Different ones, and by the way, don't ever try to find out if the Terminator's actually a robot, because I spent 3 hours on Reddit and I still don't know, okay? I did it to prepare for this presentation. But we can discuss it after if you want. But robots, maybe they're already in your life. Apparently a robot has been running the biggest social networks on the planet as well. I'm not sure about that. But robots have been around, okay? But as you just heard, AI is gonna give a giant boost to this entire robot thing. So your next coworker might be a robot. Your next pet might be a robot. Your next child, for all I know, might be a robot. I don't think that's a great future, and I don't think we necessarily want it, because I think there's a ton of things wrong with AI and robots. So let's look at these. Would you want to cuddle any of them? Be honest. You wouldn't want to cuddle them because they're not cuddly, and they're sweaty. We just learned they're sweaty too. Who would want to cuddle them? They're not cuddly. And then you just heard robots need a ton of lithium. We also heard that robots need a ton of data. And then there's also the security risk of robots going rogue. And all of that, I think, means that we should be careful with what we do with robots. So I, thankfully, have a better solution. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's ponies. Because ponies have a ton of advantages, and that's why everybody loves ponies. Do you remember this? This has been going on for years, right? Everybody wants ponies. So ponies are obviously mega cuddly. Everybody wants to cuddle them. They're not sweaty at all. They need 0 lithium. All they need is a few carrots, and they're good. They need 0 data, okay, for their AI, because they don't use AI. And between the two of us, FAI. I don't believe in AI. I believe in EI, equine intelligence. Because our ponies are so smart, they know immediately if they should treat somebody badly, like Gregoria's mother-in-law, or really well, like my mother-in-law, who's a very, very, very amazing woman. And she watches my talks on YouTube, okay? Plus, ponies are not dangerous at all. Look at it. It's not going to attack you, can't even hold a gun. So, ponies are the future. And our first market is mobility. Because there's a ton of solutions in mobility, but none of them are as good as ponies. And I'll lay out the case. So our product is called Pony, the mobility revolution. That's what we call it, sort of privately. And what we do is we have rental ponies for everyone, everywhere. So you can just walk around, and this is an actual picture I took earlier today. You can walk around, you see a pony, you go into the app, you see the ponies around you. This is an actual live screenshot, so when you leave the grounds, you can get a pony. You click on it, you say, I want to ride it, you start riding it. That's the system, very simple, amazing, much better than riding a scooter. Why would you ride a scooter if you can ride a pony, right? So we think that this will work in big cities, for sure. This will also work in the suburbs. And our ponies are so flexible that we can basically solve any mobility situation. We have different products for different sort of types of customers. So our cheapest option is Pony X, but we also have Pony Black, we have Pony Black SUV, and we also have Pony Pool. With any mobility solution like that, Charging infrastructure is obviously a really, really big problem, but we have it figured out. We call it the Super Carrot Network, and you can recharge the Pony in no time. We also have the mode that everybody needs in all applications right now, the most important thing ever, and that is, of course, dark mode. So we have dark mode too. If you remember this, like catching the rocket that comes back from outer space and all that cool shit, that was all over the news. Who's talking about our solution that we've developed already? Nobody even mentions it. It's way cooler. Look at this. I'm highlighting it for you. This is how we catch the Pony, and it's amazing, works every time. Nobody wrote about it, okay? TechCrunch, where were you? Our business model is very simple. You pay to unlock, and then you pay per mile, but that's not the only way we make money, because we have a lot of aftermarket potential. In fact, we believe in our aftermarket potential so much that we developed our own brand. It's called Beyond Pony. And I'm in talks right now to be the catering for this event next year. So if you're coming back next year, hopefully you can already eat our burgers. We have launched our MVP, and people absolutely loved it. We've done a lot of benchmarking versus other mobility solutions. And if you ask yourself what happened to that thing with like the flying taxi, droney car things, we have an option that is really amazing in that field. We call it Pony Air. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be amazing. In fact, if you check the news, I think like 2 years ago, this was in the news. Do you remember that? Let's zoom in a little bit. You can actually see what they shut down was our prototype. That was really annoying for us, but thankfully the Pony is fine, so no worries about that. We also believe ponies are the future of last mile delivery because, I mean, amazing. They can work everywhere. Now, I know there's a VC panel coming up, and I know the VCs are watching, so a little bit of information. We are fundraising, and it's going to be a great case because here are some revenue estimates, conservative revenue estimates that give us the perfect hockey stick that every investor is looking for, okay? And these are conservative estimates. We have a company motto, and it's move at a moderate pace and nibble things, and I'm proud to say that our employees live that motto every day. We have a very humble office in Berlin, obviously open air because in Berlin the sun always shines, but we also have a place in the US now. We recently got the place. I was under the assumption that the previous tenant had to go to prison, but apparently he moved somewhere else, weirdly, so I don't quite get it, but this is now our place. We have an amazing team full of experienced people in the equine business, and we're building the world's first ponycorn. I mean, that's bottom line what we're doing. Yes, we've been to all the equine accelerators you would expect. We've been through Pony Stars, we've been to Plug and Pony, and we've been to Pony Combinator. So far, we've funded our startup by selling cereal, which is a completely new idea that nobody else has ever had. But right now, we want to grow, so we're raising 50 million. We're getting a lot of interest. One guy apparently just sold his basketball team, and he said something about perfect fit, so he wants to invest. These guys also keep emailing us every day, so they want in, but the investors that are on stage right after this, I hope they'll also invest. So bottom line, ponies and EI are much better than robots and AI, I think, and I hope that you will take this away from my short presentation. If you want to talk about Pony or invest, just come to me. I do accept cash investments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Christoph Sollich, everybody.